Close Racing Supply in Eldred, Pennsylvania has been in business since 1996, serving the motorsports industry with quality parts for dirt late models, modifieds, and stock clip race cars. In stock are parts from top manufacturers like All-Star Performance, Weir's Machine, Sweet Manufacturing, Winner's Performance, Willwood Brakes, and many others. CRS is also home of CRS Race Components, providing top-quality suspension parts. Orders are shipped out daily using UPS, FedEx, and truck freight. Find out more at closeracingsupply.com.
Kicking up dust, spinning tires, it's a dirt track show. Lenses, focus, inches, rolling, feel that adrenaline. Capture moments, freeze frames, that's where the thrill begins.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Woah Show. Joining us is a repeat guest on the show. We got to work with him very closely this year and had a breakout season in the Rush late model division, running the tour. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Well, Nelly, it's good to be here.
So, Russ and I talked about you a little bit on our podcast. I'm sure that you listened into that. So let's start about your 2025 season. You stepped on it a couple times. You had some bad luck. And, at the end of the year, man, you look like a well-oiled machine. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, that was the first thing I did was I called Russ, and he's not real big into the podcast foo-foo and all that shit. So I called Russ, and I had to give him a little bit of shit for being on the pod. And I told him, I said, you didn't say nothing too stupid. And because the thing is, I think he just speaks. He doesn't even know what's coming out of his mouth. He just talks. So I brought up a couple points, and he's like, I said that? I was like, yeah, you did. But no, we had an all right 2025. I think I couldn't have had a more up and down season. I think, we blew up motors, we crashed out of races. I think, and the worst part is we crashed out of races when we're running good. And we probably were hunkered down to run about, I don't know, like 8th in the points until the Pittsburgher. I don't know. I've always sucked at Pittsburgh, and I had we were good both nights, just got ran into night one, then was able to be up on the podium night two, and that kind of saved our points there because a lot of them guys just can't figure that place out, and I happened to be one of them for a while, and it's tricky. It races different. You got to set your car up different, so that place is it's a whole different animal, but we got it right that weekend and was able to gain, 3 or 4 spots in points, which helps out tremendously. It pays, what it pays for 5th compared to what it pays to 8th is a big difference. So definitely happy that we could do that.
Yeah, dude, let's talk about PPMS because that was maybe one of the wildest things I've ever seen. You came out just firing on night 2. Night 1, no bueno, like you said, but night 2, my guy, like you were up there throwing your elbows up with some of the best guys to run around that place. What was it like to finally get on up there? You've had some really good runs this season outside of the tour, Muskegon being one of them. You almost got a win there. Last year you won, you got one, but to do it against that level of competition on that kind of stage, on flow racing during the Pittsburgher weekend, what was that like? I mean, you picked a really good day to have your first real, coming out party.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty good night 1 too. I just tightened up too early in qualifying, got behind the 8 ball, and then was the B main weenie, and then came from 21st up to like 6th or something like that, and then got ran into. So we were really good. Then in night 1 there, and then I just used my notes to go into night 2, and was able to start off hot. And that's what you got to do in them races. If you don't time good, you give yourself no track position in the heat races, and you're not going to win these races unless you get into the dash. So, I mean, it was just, putting a full night together. And the thing is, we've been able to put, somewhat full nights together. Like, we've gone out, Tyler County, Ohio Valley. I think we made the dash 1 or 2 of those nights and ran top 5 both nights. Should have had a podium at Ohio Valley. And it was just, when you put full nights together, that's what happens. It doesn't matter, to an extent, doesn't matter how great you are come feature time. If you can't be good early, you just give yourself no chance. And that's where, at the Pittsburgher there, we were able to time really good and win a heat race and just set ourselves up to be in a position, to contend for a win. So, yeah, it felt good. Those guys are awesome. They're great race car drivers. Is what Max Blair won it. Carson Ferguson ran second. We had Mason Ziegler in the mix. Christian Snyder, he's an absolute dog. I mean, he's awesome behind the wheel of a race car. One of my close friends. So, and then all the other tour regulars, like Kyle Hardy, Jeremy Wonderling, Dimitri Strelas. I mean, it's a great field, and to be able to podium against all those guys, it means you're doing something right. And I think we had the speed all year to be able to contend like that. I just think we need to put full nights together, and I think we belong. We belong there. We should be running up there, and I think it's just lack of experience on my part, and that's why I'm so excited going into next year because another year of experience under my belt. Now I know how to be in those races, and that we should be in those races. I think we can take and apply what we learned at the Pittsburgher, and even to the smaller tour races like on the state line, Erie's, whatever, and be able to compete for wins at those places as well.
Yeah, you're not racing against no slouches there on the tour. The competition level of a touring series, I think in our region, that's got to be the top level of competition. So, I mean, what is it like racing? Like, you don't just race the tour, you make one off appearances at other tracks, but, racing this full season against stacked field after stacked field, how do you mentally prepare against some of the biggest dogs in the area?
And I want to, before I answer that, I also want to go out and say, even the local guys are good. Everyone's good. You don't just go into Erie's or Raceway 7 or State Line and make light work for those guys. You just don't. Muskegum, you don't. Like, the race car drivers who run around locally are all really good, too. You bring up Muskegum. There was about 3 times that we probably should have won out there this year, and of course, I found a way not to. I've been pretty good at doing that out there, but no, on the tour, those guys they're great, and it shows racing against guys. The one guy that I learned a lot from is Jeremy Wonderling. The way he races, and you learn more from racing against someone like that and being raced like that. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it is when you get to a point where you're fast and you race with those guys the way you do. You know they gain trust for you, so you can race really hard. And I never understood the true meaning of racing aggressive until I've raced against guys like that. And it's controlled aggression, and it's wild. Some of the moves that we pull, but that's just what it is. When you race against each other week in and week out, you learn each other's tendencies, and you figure out how to race certain people. And it's a blast, and I felt like that core group of tour guys who traveled around every week, I feel like we all got really close, and that also, as great as it is to be, I don't want to say friends, but acquaintances with everybody that you race with, at the same time, it makes it that much harder when something stupid happens on the racetrack. But a week later, no one's even talking about it. You know what I mean? But you just have to be like a goldfish, whether someone screws you over, whether you screw someone else over, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you got to go race again. Just putting it behind you and moving on. You know what I mean? That's just what it has to be. And you see them guys are pretty good at it. No one really holds that tight of a grudge. I mean, I could get into some of the Rush late model drama on here, but I'm not gonna get into it. But like a good example is night 1 of the Fall Classic at McKean. Connie Waters and Jeremy Wonderling I'm just gonna say took each other out because I didn't see it. I was running like 10th at the time. And then the next day, they were cool talking in the drivers' meeting, and that's just what you got to be like. You can't hold grudges. You can't, go back out and be like, oh, I'm gonna get my revenge on this guy, because you got to race with these guys every single week. So obviously, no one's going out there headhunting, trying to crash people. So just having that mutual respect and just racing each other hard. That's what I truly feel that the Rush Late Model Series has some of the best competition in the nation. Especially you talk about you go to a place like Erie's. Well, there's 7 or 8 guys at Erie's that are really good who can win races there. Well, then you bring your 15, 16 tour guys who come in who are really good. Well, now you got 20, 30 some cars who all have a chance to win. And that's what makes it interesting, because there's nights where you can go out and, you run, 3rd, 4th, whatever. Then you go to another place where, there's more local guys and you're racing for 10th. And Pittsburgh's one of them places where it seems like early on the people who run there a lot always have the advantage over the guys like myself who don't run there all the time, who can get behind the 8 ball early. So even the local guys are good. I just think right now the crate racing, around home is is some of the best in the nation. And I was reading, of course, I read up on the comments and stuff. Like I read up on the comments on, you posted a little segment there talking about, Russ was talking about Aunt Vicky and her races, and I thought that was the funniest thing. Aunt Vicky and Uncle Mike, because nowadays you got all these kids running around in the series, so it's like they're babysitters or something. But no, those kids don't do a bad job. Like Logan, Karsten, that Christiak boy, all them kids, they do a good job. Most of them don't race like idiots because they come from a background where they get beat into their head how to race, and that's very helpful. But no, like I read up on the comments and everyone's like, well, Vicky's done this, she's done that. I don't, when you run week in and week out, you're gonna have run-ins with track promoters, you're gonna have run-ins with series owners, whatever. Like it's gonna happen. But at the end of the day, there's no other series in the nation or crate series in the nation that's racing for the money that we are, that has the same professional look that Rush does and the same feel. So at the end of the day, you play the game. You don't bite the hand that feeds you because right now Rush is where it's at, and Russ makes a really good point. If you're financially able to do it and you want to be a race car driver, you race crate late models. It's just what you do.
Yeah, coming out of your sophomore season, what kind of lessons, what do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned here running around? You got another year under your belt. What were kind of the things that you learned from year 1 to year 2 that made a huge difference?
Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking, for on-track answers, but on the racetrack, I think I learned more year 1 and did more applying it year 2, but it was off the racetrack more that I feel like I learned, especially when you're running good, because the standard's higher. The standard for you to race better is higher. The standard for you to work harder is higher. And, I think one of the hardest things, especially for me being a young guy who hasn't been in that situation before, is being able to put everything else aside and really focus on racing. There's been times where, my crew chief and I have got, I shouldn't say we've gotten into it. It's been more one side than anything, because he's not wrong when he sits me down and says, pull your head out of your ass. Like, we got work to do. And that's been the big thing, just being able to put my 100% focus into my race program. And obviously, with some changes coming into 2026, that's going to be even more in play. So I think a lot of these kids too, that's the hardest thing for these kids too, is being 100% attentive and focused on your race car at the racetrack during the week. That's what's going to make you better. And I think for me, I had to step up this year, and just the expectations higher. So that was my big, I guess, learning curve, is just being able to step up more, whether it's at the racetrack, whether it's at the race shop during the week, and just putting everything I have into it. And you can definitely tell, like nights like the Pittsburgh, I didn't have my crew chief with me, so the expectation for me to step up and play both roles, I didn't have a choice. And I think being able to do that and being able to learn, how to be more than just a race car driver, is only going to help me out, is only going to help our team out and make us better. So that's my main push for 2026, is to be much more than a race car driver and apply what I've learned about my race car, about setting up my race car, and apply that as a driver as well. Because I think you will separate yourself from everybody else who doesn't know that much about their race car, who has just someone setting it up for them. When you can, I'm not saying do it yourself, like you don't need anybody else, but be able to help make decisions on your own, be able to justify why we're making setup changes, and different stuff like that.
Yeah, and talking about it, what's the 2026 outlook look like for the O2 crew?
Yeah, right now, so all of our stuff, and no one really knows about this, so I guess this is kind of getting announced on your podcast, but as of, a week or two ago, the 2 machine will not be housed where it was. So right now we are in the process of working on getting our own stuff, as getting, a trailer, all the tools, all the necessities, that go into that, and getting a garage ready and all that good stuff. The expectation to step it up and be able to do more on my own is going to be huge, considering that we're going to be more on our own this year. We're still gonna have our help. Um, I think, Timmy, he got his wife's pregnant again, so he has another kid on the way. He's got more responsibility. Dad, he works a lot. Ronnie, Ronnie's the best, man. I hope he's listening to this, because Ronnie's the best. It's kind of a funny story how he showed up, but I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, just moving on and being being more on our own and being more self-sufficient, it's going to be a challenge for sure, but it's something that I think we're ready for and prepared for. um, and I'm excited to go into 2026 with the information and the experience that I learned the past 2 years, but mainly last year, being more attentive to how my race car works, how I'm setting it up, and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. I think going into 2026, the expectation is to have a really big year.
What are you, with the expectations? You guys ended on such a high note. What are you guys most excited for coming up here in the new year?
Racing. I mean, make it that simple. We just want to go racing. But you know, obviously, right now the waiting game is to see when Rush puts out their schedule, and see where we're gonna go and how everything's gonna shake out, and the dates of a lot of things. I know some racetracks have already put out certain things, like State Line put out. I think their tour race is 4th of July weekend. I think they have another one later in the year, but yeah, so right now I'm just excited to, because, race car is torn down, everything's all sent out. So just to get everything back and make our race car look more like a race car and get ready to go racing again.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see how you guys shape out. A lot of eyeballs, I think, really looking at you after the way you guys ended your season. Battling up front, throwing your name in the hat, because it takes just 1 or 2 races to get that confidence to really feel like you guys belong up there. And I think a lot of folks think that racing is a lot of you spend more money, you go faster, but the mental game of it, of running good or running bad. I mean, how many nights have you had in your racing career where one bad night's ruined an entire month of just feeling like dog shit? So the mental aspect of being able to see yourself up front, do all that good stuff, and maybe sell a couple more T-shirts for the next year.
Well, the hardest thing is, I think we went on a 8 or 9 race stretch where we either crashed out, had something stupid happen, had hauler breakdown, or blew a motor. The hardest thing is to stay motivated during the tough times, because you can't slack off. You still got to put everything you have into it. And it just felt like sometimes, and I know I'm not the only one who felt this way, but sometimes during the season you get to a point where you're working so hard in the shop, and you're doing all the right things, but all bad things are happening. So being able to push through those times, because it does get better, and most of the time it gets worse before it gets better, but when it does get better, it rewards itself. It makes it worth it. It makes you appreciate that you stuck to the grind and kept doing all the right things. So yeah, I think, and it wasn't like the Pittsburgher was the only time that we ran good all year. We had some other good runs on the tour that don't get talked about, but the Pittsburgher is the big thing, because that's the big race. That was one of the, obviously the Firecrackers, the biggest race of the year, but second biggest race of the year there at Pittsburgh, and arguably the best competition that we saw all year was at the Pittsburgher. So that's what's talked about, because it's on Flow, it's streamed, it's one of the bigger events. So I think all the other good things that we did during the season get overshadowed by the Pittsburgher, which I understand. But we had a lot of good runs. We've had a great race car all year. So I think confidence wise, I think we should have confidence, because our stuff's been good, and we just need to be more consistent and be better early on when it comes to next year. If we want to race for a championship, that's just what you got to do. You got to be good early. So it goes back to the conversation that we just had. But yeah, I think I definitely think that Pittsburgher run was a huge confidence boost for everybody. I think we needed something like that to end the year off, because we were pretty good early on. We got to the middle there, and it just seemed like we couldn't, catch a break. Having that good run at the end of the year, especially at the Pittsburgher, I think that was really good for team morale around the Easler Racing stables.
Outside of the tour, I know it's November when we're recording this. Who knows when we're going to put this up, because we're kind of stacking a few here before we all head to PRI and maybe the Dome and all the other fun stuff that we get to do here in the winter. So kind of looking forward, other than the tour, where can maybe the new fans of Ben Easler Racing after year number 2 get to find you racing around?
Yeah, of course we'll be at Raceway 7, Erie, State Line. We always, every time we get the chance to go to Muskegon, we're going to go. That place is awesome. The Morans are great people. We'll go down to Pittsburgh, and what you'll see a lot at the beginning of the year when there's not a whole lot of racing is, if we have to travel 3, 4, 5 hours to go race, we're going to do it. That's just how much we love it. And being able to get as much in early gives you that much of an advantage over everyone else who is waiting, who's waiting till the tour starts or waiting until their local racetrack opens up. So I think getting after it, as soon as possible, is what we need to do. But yeah, we're not on the tour, just the local racetracks around me, Raceway 7, State Line, Lernerville when they have the weekly shows, Erie's, Pittsburgh, we'll be around.
All right. Well, hey, before we get going, we got to do the quick little ending segment where we ask you a couple questions before we get rolling. So first things first, and I don't know if we did this the last time, so if this is a repeat of the last time we did this, we have a format that we almost keep. So question number 1, who's your favorite race car driver of all time?
Yeah, we did this. My favorite race
Let's see if it changes.
Well, see, the issue is, it's funny because I just listened to this Rust podcast, and the cliche answer is my dad. Mini stock legend. I grew up watching him. But no, my favorite race car driver of all time, someone that, I don't know, man. There's a lot of guys that I like watching, a lot of guys that I idol, but and the hardest thing is the answer is Dave Hess. I've watched him ever since I was a kid, and me and Dave have a relationship where we talk at the racetrack, and he's a super cool guy. He's always helping me out when I have questions and stuff like that, and being able to race against him is such a blessing. But no, Dave Hess for sure. I've always been a Dave Hess fan, even if we ever get into it on the racetrack, that's the hardest thing, especially being younger racing against those guys is. I grew up watching some of them guys, so you start to become fans of watching some of these guys. And then you're on the racetrack, and you got to put that aside. You know what I mean? But if I'm sitting, if I'm running crates somewhere and I'm watching a super late feature, I'm watching Dave Hess.
Yeah, do you ever get starstruck passing some of these guys?
Maybe a little. I think it felt really good passing Mason Ziegler at PMS on that last restart.
You're just like looking over and you're like, holy shit, am I really this fast?
Well, I was like, man, these guys race for a living. I'm just some kid.
What's your favorite racetrack?
Favorite racetrack? My favorite place to go, it's different. Like my favorite place to go to is Muskegon. Because every time you go there, it's just some random, in the middle of nowhere place in Dresden, Ohio. But somehow that place, there's nowhere to even sit. Even on a weekly show. They pack that place every week, and I love the atmosphere of it. Like, it's awesome. It's what dirt racing should be. But I get excited to go to Pittsburgh. Even when we sucked, like even back when we sucked, I got excited to go there because the racing's so good. It's fast, it's wide, it polishes off, especially with the tour. The racetrack gets a little bit different, gets wider, and it's that place is such a blast. I think that's the best racetrack for crate late model racing. And when you get a group of really good drivers out there, man, it puts on a show. It's a blast. But between Pittsburgh and Muskegon, I would say Sharon, but I did get to run Sharon once last year in a mod. I try not to talk about that because that didn't go as well as I had hoped, but
dude, he was talking so much shit. Oh, I'm unretiring. I'm gonna come out here and whoop these boys. The Rush Sportsman King is back, and what happened?
Yeah, well, I jumped the start in the heat. I jumped the start from the pin in my heat race, and everyone thinks I was just nerved up. I actually I genuinely forgot where the line was. I was messing around with something on whatever pace lap, and we're going down the back stretch, and I was like, I haven't raced here in so long. I forgot where the line was, and I fired, and then I looked and I seen it painted there, and I was like, well, let's see if they get me for it. Apparently, I jumped it a lot worse than what I thought I did, but then we go out and got docked a row, got passed by everybody, and then come feature time, we passed a couple cars. I got more comfortable, but no, it's definitely in my head. I was like, shoot, man, I've won a pile of races in these things, and I'm back in an RKR car. I should be all right. And I got whooped, Nelly. I got whooped.
Yeah, that was one of them. Hey, just say that we were there on Facebook moments.
That's exactly what it was. I told them guys that don't post the results, don't go on your race pass, don't be, just say that we were at Sharon. That's all that matters. I didn't even do anything special. It wasn't like I was like racing someone hard or like I was trying to rip the fence down. Like we were just there. So that's it. I was like, you don't even gotta tell them. I think we ran like eighth. Like it really wasn't no good, but it was still fun. That's a nice thing about doing something like that is there's no pressure, and especially with the RKR guys, it's just fun. So it was just fun to get out for a night, do something different, and not have to worry about the pressure of points or because I guess theoretically I don't race those cars, so I guess I'm not expected to win, even though going into it I'm sitting there like I got this one, boys, and I didn't.
Yeah, Ben said, "Hold my beer," and he drove backwards.
Yeah, I wheeled from the pin all the way to like sixth in my heat race.
So, and since we'll change it up for you, since you did this before, what's your favorite memory from this season of racing, on or off the track?
On or off the track, favorite memory from this season. Oh man, there's a lot. There's a lot of memories, especially when you go all the places that we go and race all the places that we do with all the people that we get to see. So, there's so many memories. Obviously, the best memory on the racetrack is podium, the Pittsburgher, because that was awesome. And for a minute there, I probably was hunkered down to run about fifth before that caution came out and saved me, and I was able to pick off two more. But off the racetrack, I don't know, man. Probably, probably the sweeps, because when you're on the road tour racing like that, I mean, obviously you stay out places and whatever, but going back to the sweeps and being able to hang out with a lot of people that I grew up racing go karts with, it felt like home. You know what I mean? So just being able to come home and see everybody, and it was an on tour race, so just didn't really have to worry that much about points. We were just there to work on our stuff and just get better and just race, try and make some money. So that was a good time being able just to see everybody. And but yeah, oh, and yeah, at the sweeps when that semi truck smoked the wall trying to get out. When they did that four wide salute with the late models, and they held them up for like 20 minutes out there because that guy smoked the wall trying to get out. That was funny. And of course, the first person to go running over there with a phone is Russell. And then Paul's sitting there trying to get him, like, Paul's trying to help him get this thing out. Paul's like, well, like trying to be real, like, hey, you gotta back up and come at this thing. Russ is like, just gun it, you'll get out. And he ripped the axle. Like I think he ripped the axle right out of that thing. It was just spilling oil all over the place. It was awesome. That was funny. You don't get to see that every day, but it just changes all the time. You get to see different theatrics and stupid shit at the racetrack all the time. So and that's what just keeps it from becoming repetitive. You get so locked in on the racing side of things to where when something funny like that happens, it gives you something to talk about. So that was funny. Definitely the sweeps. That was a good time. But on the racetrack, the Pittsburgher for sure. That was probably one of the coolest things that I've ever done racing wise in general. And we didn't even win. You know what I mean? We've won modified races and go karts and all that good stuff. But probably my favorite memory in a race car, just in general, is that deal, because being able to go toe to toe with the best in the world kind of shows where the potential of where we had to be. So that meant a lot to me.
Yeah. 3 things you're thankful for.
3 things I'm thankful for: my family. I don't know, my family. All my my good friends, everyone who helps out with this racing deal. give some glory to God, whether he loves me or hates me at the moment. Depends. During the race season, I felt like they're in the middle of it. I did something to tick him off. But then at the end, he maybe he had some sympathy and decided to help us out a little bit. But I don't know, my family, my friends, racing. And you won't, Nelly. And you won't, Nelly.
We got one. We got one, boys. Hey, thank everybody that makes this happen. Sponsor, friends, family, crew. Make sure you get them all. I know you got to do this a couple times with a microphone in your face, but, it's always good to shout out your guys.
Yeah, of course. Got to thank, all my guys, my dad, Ronnie. That's what I want. This is what I want people to know. And this might take a few minutes, but I've mentioned this earlier in the podcast with Ronnie. This Ronnie, right? He worked with my dad back in Titusville. Ronnie came out to the racetrack in 2023 for the first time. And, he's one of them older guys. He grew up around racing, but I didn't really know the guy. And it was kind of uncomfortable when this, random older fella just jumping under my race car and starts wrenching on stuff. But, so I told him, I said, hey, if he didn't screw nothing up. So I said, hey, you're welcome to come to the racetrack whenever you want. And next thing you know, he's coming to all these races and we start this late model deal. And so my grandma, for those of you who know, my grandma, she's always running around with us. She always has run around with us ever since the go-kart days. I mean, my dad and I, when we ran go-karts, we would sleep in the front seat of a pickup truck and drive to all these racetracks just because everyone used to make fun of us back then because we had this little open trailer and it was all some homemade janky thing, but we get made fun of, and then that quickly stopped once we started winning. But we just sleep in the front seats of the truck, and we drive around. And Grandma would bring her car, and she'd sleep right in the back of it. So she was a trooper, but she comes to all these races, and I always picked fun because they're both widows. So I always picked fun. I was like, this is like a match made in heaven. And all of a sudden, one day, my grandma was like, hey, can you come in here and talk to me for a minute? And she's like, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going out with Ronnie. And I was like, I freaking knew it. I was like, I knew it. I spoke it into existence. And the best part is how Ronnie told my dad. They're at work one day and he comes into my dad's office and is like, hey, talking about racing, whatever. And he goes to turn and walks out and just turns and looks at him and says something like, hey, just wanted to let you know I'm banging your mother. And just walks out. And that's how my old man found out. So, oh man, she's going to be really mad that I said that on the podcast. But she's going to listen to this and she's going to be furious that I said that on the podcast. But yeah, so that's how that kind of worked out. So now Ronnie's he's not just a part of the race team, but he's part of the family now. They moved in together and they've been happy, and he gets to put up with her little yippy dog. So it's a match made in heaven, I suppose. But no, obviously I got to thank my guys, Dad, Ron, Tim, my friends who come out and help. Scotty's been a big part of it. He's been helping me out a lot. He's gonna be involved more in 2026. All my great sponsors, start out, Russ King and Russ King Racing. He helps me out a ton. Crawford Custom, Swing Factory. I forgot to thank. I'm working at the Swing Factory, and I forgot to thank them in my interview with the Pittsburghers. So I thought I was about to get fired, but no, the Swing Factory, Angry Duck Graphics. They're going to be on board for 2026, hooking me up with race suits, gloves, shoes, apparel, wraps, the works. If you need apparel, race suits, just whatever, you know where to go and make quality stuff. They just did a suit and a wrap for Brian Shirley to go to the Dome, and it's fantastic. The Evil Knievel type deal. So, yeah, and then Pork's Body Works, Espable Heating and Air, Shepherd's Lubricants, Sagertown Hardware, Lakeside Lanes, Lakeview Ford. Let me keep going here. SRI, Wedge Motorsports. They have a nice little Black Friday thing going on, which this probably isn't going to get posted until after, but go hit up Wedge. They're awesome. Here today. I think I got everybody. I think I nailed that. Vladibros Racing. We got a lot of them, and we're always looking for more. Always looking for more marketing partners. As racing is expensive, and if you want to do it at a high level, it's really expensive. So we're always looking for marketing partners and sponsors. So if you got a business or you don't have, it doesn't matter. If you want to help out Easler Racing, shoot us a message on Facebook, give me a call, whatever. We can work something out. And then, of course, got to thank people like you, Nelly, for giving race fans something to listen to. I'm sure, you just hit 11,000 followers. Am I right?
Yeah, we just did that today as of recording the podcast, not when it went up.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Congratulations. I also want to congratulate you for this podcast because this will be the most female viewed podcast that you've put out so far. So I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you, or you can thank me for that. Actually, that'll help. But no, then all the track promoters, the series promoters, Vicky, Mike, just everyone who's involved with all that, and my team, and all the fans, all the great supporters who come up to me, and it means the world that I have such a great support group behind me. Not just with my team, but all the fans, the people who are watching, saying nice things. That truly means the world to me. So hats off to them as well.
All right, Ben. It's always good talking to you, and we'll definitely see you more next year. Ben Easler on the Woah Show. Thanks for coming. Hell yeah. All right, everybody. Start again. Hey, everybody. Woah Nelly from the future. Time to do some ad reads here, as we have a lot of partners that make everything here happen at Woah Nelly Productions. First and foremost, Carpy's Print Company is your source for the best wraps, merch, designs. If they don't do it, you don't need it. And that says everything because they even do energy drinks, RC car wraps. I see stuff that they do all the time that I didn't even see pop up, whether it be on their Facebook page or not. Some of the best wraps in the game. If you see it out on the racetrack and it looks amazing, it's probably a Carpy's Print Company product. So make sure you go and mention us today to get your wraps for 2026 or your merch or anything else that you might need for print purposes. Zenfolio is the backbone of Woah Nelly Productions. Our website runs on Zenfolio, and if you bought a season package or photos from us this year, that's where you got them from. It's a Zenfolio powered website. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do all these cool things. We use them in very interesting and unique ways, and we hope to continue working with them in the future. And of course, Close Racing Supply, your home for all dirt track oval products. If you need it, they probably have it to go fast in 2026. It's time to start getting back out in the garage. Racing season's not that far away. Affliction Race Cars is the official modified of Woah Nelly Productions. It is also time to, maybe think about some upgrades. David Scott has a whole bunch of things going on in his shop there. And the Scotts have been great supporters of what we do here. And I cannot wait to keep seeing what they do out of their shop. They're good partners with Close Racing Supply. And you can get Close Racing Supply parts right there too. On top of that, fire suits, they do that there. And man, they make a lot of people go fast. Probably one of the better shops to go to out of the area. Can't wait to see what their 2026 plans are out there. Bernahalo Hot Sauce Company was part of our sponsorships in 2025. They sponsored the Hot Laps portion of the Woah Nelly modified races. They have some of the best sauce in the game. They going on and on about how I am not a hot sauce person. I am not a fan of the heats. They bring flavor along with some heat. So check them out today. It's worth a try. Some other lower down here on my list of sponsors, FHM Performance started this year, was our power plant supplier for our go-kart. Victory Fuel, State Line Speedway, and Bradford Speedway, also partners in 2025. If you want to get a part of us in 2026, reach on out. We'll be doing this podcast all winter long. And now back to the program.